Sorry. Can you hear me? Very good. It's great.
Sure.
Are you sure you can hear me? If any time during the talk you can't hear, then please put your hand up and just let me know.
What about those in the middle? All right? Okay.
The middle is the best. The middle way. The people in the back, I used to be a school teacher for 1 year before I became a monk, and I always noticed the naughty children sat in the back. But not here, of course. So anyhow, as long as you can hear, that's great. And of course, for this evening, we're giving a talk about the power of precepts. And never ever think that the precepts are just some ritual, which is past its use by date. I owe so much to the precepts which I've kept over the years. 51 years now. And it's almost like the precept, I don't keep the precepts anymore, the precepts keep me. They keep me safe, and it's just such a part of my nature now. There's hardly any way you can break any precept. Even to the point, I just remembering one story, that over in some parts of Thailand, please remember that's where I got my early training. In some parts of Thailand, they always used to believe that if you offer something, some food or some medicine or whatever, to a monk, then afterwards, your relation who passed away might be able to receive that donation. In other words, on one occasion, somebody offered me some durian. Now, a lot of times, I will eat it even if I don't like it, just out of compassion for you. But that day, I decided to pass it down the line to another monk. I never ate any. And because of that, the person trying to offer it to me complained. Does that mean my Father up in heaven won't be able to eat any durian today? Because I never received it. It doesn't work that way. Just as long as you offer something to a monk, you can go to the shop in heaven, I don't know what, the shopping mall in heaven, and you can get whatever you want. Even though once they know a Buddhist monk has got his rules to keep, so sometimes they offer me a big bucket. And in that 11-liter bucket, there were so many offerings. Things like soap, and things like a towel, and a little robe. There's so much stuff in there, I never checked it. I will never make that same mistake again, because I sent it down to the attendants to unpack, and then 5 minutes later they came back and they told me, so what's this doing in here? It was a bottle of Johnny Walker whiskey. They fooled me. They put it in the bucket and they surrounded it with soap and washing powder and towels and everything else. So you couldn't see it. It was concealed. And I told them, what did you do that for? Well, we knew if you'd seen it, you would have received it, correct? The only way to get it to you is to hide it and then give it to you and hope you didn't recognize it. You say, you know what's going to happen to that whiskey? So I told the Anagarikas, down the sink. I don't care how expensive it was. The monks don't do that. They don't try and deceive people. They try and make sure that everything is done appropriate with your precepts. And I remember, I think I told this story to you some years ago, but it's an appropriate time now, that there was the case of this traveller. This traveller arrived in Perth, and when he arrived in Perth, they always check some people's luggage just at random. And when they checked this one man's baggage, they looked inside the bag, and underneath his suit and jumper was a couple of bottles. And they said, "What's this?" And this gentleman said that, "Now, I'd just been on pilgrimage to France, to the holy city of Lourdes, and this has some holy water in it." And the customs officer said, "Well, why has a bottle got a big label saying Johnny Walker on the outside?" He said, "Well, I have to put it in something. I just happen to have a couple of empty bottles of Johnny Walker, and I put the holy water in there." Customs officers are very, very skeptical. They don't believe you that easy. So the customs officer opened the lid of one of the bottles. He smelt it and asked the traveller to smell it. "What does that smell like to you?" "To me," said the customs officer, "it smells like whiskey." So the traveller smelt it and said, "Oh my goodness, it's another miracle." And so, to this day, if you look at the Australian customs regulations, one of the prohibited items to bring into Australia is holy water. Honest. Because I remember just looking through those customs regulations. They said, yes, you're not allowed to bring holy water into Australia, just in case it may turn into whiskey. I don't know. But anyhow, so as a Buddhist monk, because I keep on coming and going through the customs, I travel a lot. And because I don't travel at all. People ask me, "Where are you flying to today?" I said, "I don't fly. Birds fly, not monks." And I tell them, "Look, I don't fly. I get on the aircraft. The aircraft does the flying. I just do the sitting down." It's wonderful to think like that. You think different ways than most people. Because you think different ways than most people, you have a very peaceful life. I never fly anywhere. It's just like whenever I arrive at the destination, when I go back to Perth, just before the new year, they always ask me the same question. "How was your visit to Penang?" And I always say, "Wonderful." "Well, give us more description." "Well, it was kind of up and down. You take off, that's the up part, and you go landing, and that's the down part." It's always the same. But anyhow, I can never lie, because this is one of the precepts which you've kept for so many years. You kept it for so many years, it's kind of almost impossible to lie. The only time is when, a lot of time when you tell a funny story. And it's not really a lie, you just always explain it afterwards. But those precepts have become so important for me in my life. They protect you. They keep you safe. And one of the stories I am going to tell was of a Malaysian woman who lives in Perth. And I've been to her house, I've known her for so many years, and she was a very, very good Buddhist. And she kept her precepts very, very well. Not just her precepts, she was kind and generous. And so much so that I realized that with those sorts of devotion to her precepts, never breaking them, something wonderful must happen for her. And so when we had our retreats in Perth, she was one of the star meditators. I kind of expected that because I know the power of precepts. They do lead to a pure mind. And when you have a pure mind, the meditation gets really easy. And there's ways for me to understand how easy it is when they come for interviews and I ask them, well, what happened? And this particular time, I was not just teaching the jhanas, I was just teaching what to do after the jhanas. And one of the things which I taught her was how to recall your previous lives. Are you interested?
Yes.
So for her, I told her that once you have a very happy, peaceful meditation, where you go inside and where your whole focus is inside this moment and you're enjoying it immensely. You have lots of what we call piti sukha in your meditation. Then do something as very easy as asking yourself, what is my earliest memory? I have to be very careful when I make statements about my own practice, because sometimes it causes too much questions and accusations. And so one thing which I do know, that as a Buddhist monk, you're not allowed to claim knowledge of your previous lives to lay people. But I got around this. I get frustrated sometimes with that rule, but it's the rule. I try and keep it. So on this particular occasion, I told people what happens when you can remember not a memory of your past life, but a memory of this life, when I was a young baby. A young baby, newly born, maybe 5 or 6 weeks old, something like that. Because in the meditation, when I asked, what is my earliest memory? I remembered a time in my baby's pram. The pram, the little thing your mother wheels you around in. When you have a good meditation, a happy, peaceful meditation, if you ask the right question, you will get an answer immediately. You don't force it, you don't have to wait, it comes up straight away. And the weird part of this is you remember that experience as if you were reliving it. It's not like you remember what you had for lunch today. It's like you're re-eating the lunch. You're right there. And so I remembered being a little baby, a few weeks old, in the little pram in which my mother would push me. And the weird thing about that was one thing which I did notice. I could recognize my mother, not by how she looked, as much as by how she smelled. It was kind of weird because I never did any studies on the development of the senses for babies. When I gave a talk about that in public, there was one doctor who confirmed that when you are born, the first sense which is dominant is your sense of smell. Just like a dog would recognize you by how you smelled, I recognize my mum by how she smelled. So the first piece of advice, if any of you maybe have a child you give birth, or maybe, I'm looking at you now, if any of your children have your first grandchild, you're not young people anymore. Please tell them to make sure that the mother never changes her scent, her perfume she uses. That will confuse everything for that child. They won't be able to recognize you because you recognize people by how they smell. And I recognize the little place where I live, my little tram. And I also recognize something which I'd basically thought I'd forgotten so many years ago. When I remember this, I was a meditator, I was a monk. It happened over in Bodhinyana Monastery many years ago. And I can also remember the little toy which I had, which I thought I'd forgotten. It was a little light blue toy pig. Because of its color, we called it Bluey. And because it had little beads in it, my mother would walk it and make me laugh all the time. I loved that little toy. And I remembered everything about it and everything about my pram in which I spent so many hours. And it was a very clear memory. I realized that that was true. I was remembering an early part of my life, only 3 or 4 weeks old. And of course, the doctors confirmed that a child of that age recognizes everything by its smell. So when this student of mine, and this Malaysian girl, when she started having beautiful meditation, because her precepts, her lifestyle was very pure and kind, it was kind of obvious to me that she would get into one of these deep meditations. And when she did and she came out, she decided to try that recollection of early life first, before past life. And so she came up with this memory, very clear, no doubt at all that was her, at her mother's breast. Just having a feed. And when she looked up at her mother, that's when the problem started. She had clear memory of this vision in her meditation. And the person from whom she was breastfeeding looked nothing like her mother. And I also knew her mother because we took them on a pilgrimage to India many years ago. And she was just so concerned. I just had this recollection in my meditation. Everything seemed to be correct about getting to these bliss states and coming out and asking what's my earliest memory. This is what I saw. What's going on, Ajahn Brahm? Is there something my mother hasn't told me? Maybe I was adopted? And she was really concerned, as she would be. And so I told her, look, don't worry about it now. Carry on meditating. And then, when the meditation retreat is over, please call your mum over in Malaysia and ask her. And just chat to her first of all, Mum, how are you? How are things going? And then in the middle of the conversation, ask her, Mum, are you my real mum? That's what she said. And of course, the mother replied, what on earth are you talking about? Of course I'm your real mum. Why do you ask such a question? And that's when this Malaysian girl said to her, I had this meditation experience at Ajahn Brahm's retreat. She knows me too. That's why the mother took this really seriously. And I was at my mother's breastfeeding, and I looked up and it wasn't you. And that's when her mother asked her, what did that woman breastfeeding you look like? And when you have these experiences post-meditation, you finally remember everything really clearly. One of the reasons is because it's one of the 5 hindrances. Maybe many of you have heard of those 5 hindrances. If you haven't, you'll hear about them later on in this meditation retreat. They're really important. Basically, it's like wanting, not wanting, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse. And the 5th one, doubt, uncertainty. That one goes after deep meditation. What you hear, what you see, you know is real. Hard for me to explain that further, but that's what it is. It's a doubt you see things clearly. You no longer feel lost. You're all looking very serious. Before I finish the story, it's my nature, I can't help it. I have to tell a funny anecdote. Once there was this man, he was lost in the desert. He'd been lost for many days, and the desert was so hot, and he run out of water. He couldn't even stand up. He was crawling in the sand and wondering when he's going to die. He was so dehydrated, suffering from sunstroke. But then on the horizon, as he looked, there was something shimmering on the horizon. And he thought, mirage. This can't be real. And also, I have sunstroke. I've been lost in the desert for days. But this thing on the horizon started coming closer towards him. That's not what a mirage should be able to do. Not only that, as it came even closer, he could hear the noises from that image which was coming closer towards him. He couldn't really believe it, but there it was. It was a dog sled with 6 husky dogs pulling it. That's usually what you find in the Arctic regions, not in the desert. But then he could hear the dogs barking. And he could see on the front of that sled, there was a gentleman, an Inuit Indian, what we usually used to call Eskimos, dressed in furs. What is anybody doing dressed in furs in a sled pulled by husky dogs in the middle of a desert? This is crazy. But the dogs were not just barking, they came right up to him and started licking him. And he realized, this is not madness, this is real. I've been rescued. And so he shouted up at the Inuit Indian driving the sled, the one in furs. And he said, I've been lost in this desert for days. You've rescued me, thank you. And the Inuit Indian replied, and you think you're lost? So you could hear that in the back? Thank you. And anyway, that used to be like a metaphor for having the doubts, where you're not sure what you see, what you feel, whether it's real or not. But in these deep meditations, that doubt is totally gone. And what you're looking at, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, is as real as anything. That's why sometimes people check it out. So anyway, this lady's Malaysian girl's mum said, what did that person breastfeeding you look like? Now, you don't have to test your memory when you have these deep meditation experiences. You recall things very easily. And sometimes in the deep meditations, you can look back upon them even months afterwards and recall them so accurately. It's very similar to when people have, say, car accidents. And because of that trauma, your mindfulness increases enormously. So much so you can remember easily. Unfortunately, in our Western language, we don't have a word for positive trauma. All the traumatic memories which people have, all concerning negative events. The things which happen in deep meditations, you remember every detail of it, and it's totally positive. Your mindfulness is really powerful. It's a mindfulness which allows you to remember clearly. So this girl told exactly what this woman looked like, who was breastfeeding her so many years earlier. And this Malaysian woman's mother was totally astounded. Yes, I never told you, because I came from quite a high-class family, we hired a wet nurse for you. I don't know how you could give such an accurate description of the wet nurse who actually breastfed you. That's totally true. This is what happens with memories of your past life. If you have them after a deep meditation, you know them, and you know it's true. And I love those stories because even now, many people feel that there's no evidence for past lives. Of course there is. And through those deep meditations, some of you may be able to access those memories of early life. One of the ones which I was always fascinated about, because I read it in an article in a magazine, but it was true. You check it up afterwards, check the details, and you find out, is there any mischief going on here? And the reason I remember this and felt it was really interesting was because I knew the person, or knew of the person, who remembered their past life. This was not due to meditation. This is what we call spontaneous memories of past lives. This particular person was a TV personality working in UK. I liked his shows very much. He was very funny. His name was Mr. Roy Hutt, Royhud. I don't know, many of you may not remember him because he was roughly my age. Do any of you remember the name Roy Hutt? I recently gave some talks in UK. This is my last place I went to visit. And, of course, because it was UK, many people recognised that name. They'd seen him on TV. But on this particular occasion, the British Prime Minister at the time, Margaret Thatcher, had rearranged the one-way system through London. And this gentleman, Mr. Roy Hutt, was at a theatre, acting in a show, and he tried to find his way back home and got totally lost in the one-way system. So badly lost, he went down a street he'd never been down before in this life. Now, many of you, I'm sure, have visited London. You notice that you're allowed to redecorate inside the house, but the front part of the house you have to leave alone. And so as he went down this street, all these old memories came back. And then he came to the house in which he had lived in his past life. His recollection was perfect. He knocked at the door of this house, and the people living inside opened the door. They weren't at all scared because they recognized him as a TV personality. I said, Mr. Hud, what are you doing here? He said, I used to live here. No, you didn't. We've been living here since the Second World War. It was before then, said Mr. Hud. And in houses where well-known personalities had lived before, they put these little blue signs on the wall. In here, this person discovered penicillin. In this place, somebody else lived. And they had a plaque on the wall there. In this place lived the famous music hall personality, Dan Leno, D-A-N-L-E-N-O. This person, before the Second World War, after the First World War, was probably the most famous, well-respected music hall comedian and singer that London had ever known. Dan Leno. So that was me in my past life. And when this fellow said this, they let him into the house and he took them around a tour of their house and showing them where they'd done all the changes to the house since his previous life. They were totally convinced. He wrote an article about it, and as soon as he wrote the article about it, it was published in some journal. He got the sack from work because the owner of the network, which employed him, was a very devout Christian. Said, I don't want anybody like this working for me. He lost his job. He didn't mind, because then he started to have the time to write all these books about the life of Dan Leno, his previous incarnation. Look in the internet, Wikipedia or something, Roy Hudd, H-U-D-D, and Dan Leno, D-A-N-L-E-N-O. You find what I said totally true. But what was interesting, one of the reasons why I say this, is because in his previous existence to this one, he was basically a stand-up comedian personality, worked on stage. I'm not quite sure exactly how he died, but afterwards in this next birth, he tended to do the same. He didn't lose that kind of skill set, and he was not as famous as Roy Hudd as he was when he was Dan Leno. But I say these things, and this guy's not a Buddhist. He's just honest. And when you keep your precepts and see how powerful they are, it's amazing what you can access in your mind. Your mind, not your brain. Your brain may be Penang, but your mind, where were you living before in previous lives? How many of you, I know our current treasurer, no, not treasurer, sorry, she is like an all-round helper. And she kept on telling me that one of her children she was Sri Lankan. One of her children insisted on eating with chopsticks every meal. How many people in Sri Lanka eat with chopsticks? Where do you think she was before? So anyway, these are fascinating details. But anyway, the power of precepts is actually to show you just how that makes your mind pure enough to be able to get into some deep meditations. And once you get into those deep meditations, the people who know you, that you've got such a pure mind, know you will never ever lie. And so whatever you say becomes very credible. And it means that all of these teachings, which you hear about in the past, these are not culturally generated teachings. This is real. What actually happens to you. So I'm going to ask you now, any of you remember your previous lives? A lot of times that people won't say. When I gave a talk on this at the Sri Lankan temple in Perth many years ago on rebirth, this kid came up to me and he said he was one of the 12 children who was interviewed and examined by Ian Stevenson. Ian Stevenson from Virginia was a big researcher into people who had spontaneous past life memories. And this was one of the children whose investigation was recorded and was written down and published in the 12 cases suggestive of rebirth. And so I met him and talked to him. And he said this was the worst thing he ever did in his life, to tell others who he was before, in a previous life. For those of you who remember your school days, especially primary school, anything which makes you different, your so-called friends in school always used to tease you. And he said that's his school days. All his so-called friends were teasing him constantly. He was only 7 or 8. How's your wife this morning? He was just a 7 or 8-year-old kid. He had to deal with all these teases. And he said his school life was terrible. So he told me, whenever you give talks about rebirth, please tell those people just to keep it quiet. Otherwise, most people don't believe you. Some people think you're crazy. And you have a terrible life. Anyway, I'm supposed to be talking about the power of precepts. But those power of precepts allows you to have the inner strength to be able to discover these truths about Buddhism through meditation. One of the other things about the power of precepts, I never realized this until one of my school friends came to visit me in Thailand. When you go to school, those people you meet, become friends for life. And I don't know. I think, you're the age, you should know this person. One of the persons who died recently, and that's what I discovered, that I went to school with him, both primary school and high school in London. And I couldn't believe it. I checked it up and it was true. He was about 3 years senior to me. His name was the actor Alan Rickman. Have you heard of that person, Alan Rickman, before? He was a famous movie actor. His most famous role in life, what most people remember him by, was in the Harry Potter movies. He was Professor Snape, the really mean one. He went to the same primary school and high school that I went to. Did I turn out mean like him as well? Am I like a Professor Snape? But anyhow, that's what I do remember. Even at school, I would always tell the truth. Even at school, I was honest. And when one of my school friends the same year came to visit me in Thailand, he came to Wat Banana Chat, and I told him, if you come all this way, one of the things you must always do is come with the monks on alms round in the morning. It's just after dawn. The monks take the bowl, they walk silently through the paddy fields to the village. And at the village you see all these amazing poor villagers. They got their sticky rice in the little basket, and they put a little bit of sticky rice in each monk's bowl silently. It's a ceremony which has been going on for 2,500 years in some places in the world. Over in northeast Thailand, I don't know how many hundreds of years. Because it's done early in the morning, usually beautiful weather, sun's just coming up, it's kind of unmissable. When I told him, please come tomorrow morning, and I was senior enough as a monk, you won't get into any trouble at all. And he said, I'd love to go, but I'm young, I live in London. I never get up that early in the morning. Even if I set my alarm, I probably won't hear it about 5 o'clock in the morning. And I told him, don't worry, I will come to the door of the room where you're staying. I will come at 4:45 and just knock on the door to make sure you come with me. That's what I did. But the reason I tell that story was because later on that day, actually later on that morning, when we were coming back from the village after alms round, he said, thank you for that, but something very, very weird happened. When I went to bed that night, I knew you'd be coming to wake me up at 4:45. When I'm in London, many of my friends say they'll wake me up, they'll call on me, they'll do this and do that. But in ordinary life, you can't trust people. So many say they're going to do it and they don't. And I knew that you were going to be there. Certainty. I could have bet my whole life on it. And of course I was. He said, that was weird. I don't know what things are like in Penang, whether you can trust everybody. But when you can trust a person 100%, I really mean 100% because their morality is so strong, so powerful. What a beautiful world that becomes. When sometimes people leave sort of their credit card, they drop it somewhere. And they know if they drop it in a monastery or a temple, it's going to be totally safe. It's amazing when you can trust people in the world. That's the power of precepts. But even more than that, when you do your meditation, it means it much easier to keep the vows of not thinking. You have much less to think about when you have a lot of morality. You don't need to start thinking, how can I do this? How can I manage this? How can I make sure that in business that no one tricks me? You know, in business, what does a monk know about business? A lot of times, I'm not a teaching monk the first years at Bodhinyana Monastery. I was a builder. So I had to arrange for builders to come to pour concrete, arrange for the bricks to arrive, do some of the woodwork. I had to make sure that everything was done, according to the plans. And what I was amazed at is there were a few of those tradies, people who actually worked at the monastery, that they loved coming to a monastery. And they would always be there on time. And whenever there was some special work to be done, they'd always cancel other things and come to work for us. You know why? It was because the trust we had. They knew, I even trusted them. Some of the stuff which they had this bulldozer man who helped build Bodhinyana Monastery. We'd tell him what needed to be done and leave him alone, and off he'd go and do it. He'd do a much better job than I even asked for at a cheaper rate. He said, what do you do that for? Because when I come and work for you, I trust there's going to be no hassle about getting the transfer of money from my committee to make sure everything was paid for properly. No cheating, total trust. If that's how much you say it was, that's how much you get paid. And that trust, he said, it was so easy working when you work with really, really good, honest people. So we had a wonderful time with these workers. And that's how Bodhinyana Monastery was built. And later on, when you realize just how powerful those precepts were, they just made life much more simple. Have you got a simple life? Do you get stressed out? If you trust the people who help you, work for you, look after you, they'll always be there for you if you need a special favor. And even if you don't need a special favor, they're looking to help you. Why do so many of you, whenever I come to Penang, ask Ajahn Brahm, what can we get for you? What do you want to eat? So much so that look at me. This is not my fault. It's your fault. And I say that with a smile because I enjoy the interaction between monks and lay people. Do you get happiness making sure I get fat? Honestly, the answer is yes. Because you see that the monks, they eat, you look after them, they're healthy, they're kind. You're like, and I say this carefully, you're like family to me. I trust you. And because I trust you, you always come and help whenever I need anything. That's one of the problems I have, is because you're so kind, I can never get any exercise. If I decide to walk from here to the airport or something, you won't let me. Your car will come past and you say, please, get in. So I need exercise. No, it's too dangerous. Get in the car. And that's happened. One of the monks, some years ago, he decided not to let me know when he was arriving at Perth Airport, coming back from New Zealand. And when he arrived at Perth Airport, I didn't know the flight number. I didn't know what time he was going to arrive. And I asked him, why did you do that? Because I was going to test out what would happen if I got no arranged lift. So he came out of Perth Airport. He walked about 50 meters, and then someone stopped. Are you going to Bodhinyana Monastery? Said the driver. It was a dead giveaway. He was dressed like a monk, bald head. Of course he was going there. So he got a lift all the way from Perth Airport to our monastery. He only walked about 50 meters. No prearranged lift. Can I do that when I leave on? I'm sure I would make it easily, honestly, simply because there's so many kind people around. Or Chow Po, I'll be in his place the day before, or the evening before I leave. I'm sure he would say, okay, you try it, see if it works. And he would go on his iPad or iPhone or something and call him, Ajahn Brahm is just walking right now. And he'd arrange a lift for me. I don't mind that because it's fun. It's joy to understand that people who have good precepts, they do have some power. Why do people like feeding me or giving me lifts? It's kind of, at first, why? Why do people always feel they're blessed if I can get into your car? If you feed me too much more, I won't be able to fit in your car. But nevertheless, it's the joy which we have looking after people like monks and nuns. Do you enjoy their company? Why? Number one, they will never complain. Number two, they always just know how to cheer you up. And how, even the psychologists over in Perth, they kept on telling me that yes, we have to go to university to get permission to practice as a psychologist. But all the important stuff, they said, we learn from you. And they were being honest. And some of them, they came up to me to prove it. They said, can you come to visit our little workplace? It was a workplace in Australia called Assets, Australian Society of Survivors of Torture and Trauma. And they were telling me the problems they were solving. The problems they were solving were people, refugees, from war-torn countries, who had been raped, tortured, beaten, had made it to Australia. Their bodies were safe, but their minds could not help remembering all the pain, all the life-threatening experiences they'd endured before they managed to get to Australia. They're doing amazing work. And they came to show me. Actually, they brought one of the ladies, and she was telling one of our members of our youth group what she'd had to endure in one of these underground dungeons somewhere in the world. And I was overhearing it. It's disgusting what some human beings do to another, but that's real. How can Buddhism help? How can anybody help? You can't undo those terrible years in darkness where you're thinking you may not even survive. They took me to the place where they worked, and they were doing something based on what I taught them, what I've taught you as well. To open the door of your heart, no matter what you've ever done. I've said that several times already during this retreat. So how are you doing that? And they told me their method. They'd say they get this young boy who was beaten senseless and just struggled to survive, or this young girl who was repeatedly raped and beaten. She didn't know why, but had to endure. But she would never be able to forget those memories. So they would ask her to sit down in a chair, first of all, to feel safe. So they were with friends who were looking after them, in this assets group. That's also why I've told many of you at the beginning of this retreat, in the interviews, and I'll repeat it now, please do not practice anapana sati. Honestly, that doesn't work. It's not just a joke. It's serious. If your meditation hurts, you will be unable to let go. Your idea of self-protection is too important. So please feel comfortable. And one of the other things I've been repeating during my interviews with many of you, I've been a monk for 51 years now. I've been teaching meditation even when I was a layperson. And in all those meditation retreats which I've taught, I don't know how many tens, hundreds of thousands I've taught meditation to. I have had not one casualty in all those years. No one. And I stress this, you can check it out if you wish. No one has ever died on one of my meditation retreats. 0 fatalities. And I'm not going to spoil that record now. You are perfectly safe. So if sometime your breath disappears and you get scared, remember what I just said. No fatalities. If ever you think, oh, this is really weird, this is strange, or you're leaving your body, don't worry, you'll come back again. And if you have some really strange experience and you want to get out of it, don't just say to yourself, I've got to get out right now. Instead, come out slowly. To come out slowly is one trick which hypnotists often use. You say to yourself, I must open my eyes after the count of 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Come out. Do it slowly, gently. Give your mind time to come back into your body. And it's so effective. If you get scared, I'm going to die, what's going to happen? Of course, that's not the way to come back into your body. Give yourself that countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But slowly and kindly. That's how it works. So you don't need to be afraid. And so those counselors teaching traumatized women from foreign countries who have been really tortured. That's how they learn, in safety. And once they feel safe, then the counselor, their friend, asks them, please close your eyes. Once they close their eyes, relax your body. Because this is coming from a trusted friend, they do feel safe. And they can do the basic calming exercises of meditation. And then once they're calmed enough, feel safe enough, then you ask them just to imagine in front of your heart region there are 2 doors, big doors. They've been locked tight out of fear for so many years, or maybe months or whatever. Imagine opening them. And imagine a ladder going from that little room in which your heart is, down to the ground. Inside your heart is a woman, or if it's a little man who's been tortured. Imagine that that part of you're happy to have inside the heart, with the good memories, with the fun you had as a kid, the joyful part of you. Imagine outside, on the cold, harsh concrete on the ground outside of your heart, you can see these little girls who are treated so badly, raped, beaten, starved, and they're outside on the ground. You can recognize them, but you're scared of them. Now imagine a ladder going down from that room in which your heart is, going down onto the concrete. And you see these little girls who are part of you, who you've denied, tried to forget, tried to escape from. Imagine inviting them up the ladder. Me, when I was very small and treated so awfully, come up. The door of my heart is open to you, no matter what's happened to you. You are me. Please come in. And you can imagine just those little women who are you so many years ago, having to be encouraged every step, walking up those stairs. They come where you are, the part of you which is strong, which is confident. Welcome in. You tell them, give them a big hug. I will never deny your existence or keep you out of the cold. You're who I am. And you will never keep them outside ever again. This is what we mean by opening the door of your heart to every one of you in your life, even the ones who've been hurt so badly. And that was the method they were using. And the results were, the word I would kind of use was so much from my youth, mind-blowing. How well that worked. You see these ladies, they'd been through hell, literally, the way they were treated. They survived was a miracle. Once they had survived, they felt so free to be able to tell others what happened to them. And this little kid from one of my, 16 or something, from my youth group, said what most people would say, that's terrible what happened to you. Wow, why did that happen to you? I feel so sad that happened to you. And this woman said, shut up. These things which happened to me, I've allowed them in. I will never keep them out of my heart ever again. They make me who I am. And this woman, like all of these women who actually passed through this group, is so strong. No one would ever be able to hurt her ever again. She was like a saint. Not a Christian, not a Buddhist, not a Muslim, but she was saintly. She had this incredible, powerful wisdom. Instead of wasting that, obviously want to try and deny it, she dealt with it properly. Bring it in. Embrace it. Grow from it. How many times you've heard me teach this? Whenever you tread in dog poo, dog shit, what do you do with it? Do you try and get rid of it? If you try and get rid of it, you haven't been listening to all those teachings I've been given on YouTube for I don't know how many years now. If you tread in the dog poo, take it back to your garden. Then scrape it off under the mango tree, if you like mangoes, or the jackfruit tree, if you like jackfruit, the apple tree, if you like apples, durian tree will do. That's why durian smells, no, I shouldn't say that. scrape it off under the mango tree, and you'll find 1 year later, your mangoes will be more than you've ever noticed on that tree before. And every one of those mangoes will be juicier and sweeter than you could ever imagine. And when you give one of those mangoes to me, or any one of the other monks or nuns here, or you eat it yourself, when you bite into that mango and all this very sweet juice runs down your cheek, that's the most delicious mango I've eaten for years. Please remember what you're really eating. You're eating, please excuse me, dog shit, transformed into the sweetest, juiciest mango you've ever eaten in your life. And that's not making it up. That's what happens. And you see, some of these people have been so, I would say, unfortunate to have been through these terrible political upheavals in the world and been locked up in a cell underground which no one knows the number, no one knows you're even there. Tortured, beaten, raped, totally abused, survived. There's so much dog poo. They've dug it in. And my goodness, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to them. Some of the most beautiful people I've ever met in my life. I'm privileged to have been able to meet them. I don't say that's what you should do. It's very unfortunate. I don't want that to happen at all. But when it does, that's how you get through it. And those people, wow, they've got incredible virtue. Once you know why, you can't do anything else. So anyway, as usual, I've spoken too much. But that last story really inspires me. Check it up if you wish. The society is called Assets, Australian Society of Survivors of Torture and Trauma. It's wonderful they're doing something about it. And honestly, imagine how I feel when they said, we got that idea from you. It works. And you're actually making a difference to people in this world. A huge one. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That's the talk. Now we have a few questions. Okay. First question here. During my sit, after 30 minutes, suddenly feel absorption. Okay, got another one there. Oh, okay, you sort them out. Okay, the orders, okay. You mentioned, oh my goodness. Can I shuffle them? No, okay. You mentioned that the Buddha and Mara, that the Buddha told Mara that he would not enter into parinibbana unless the bhikkhu and bhikkhunis sangha are established and laymen and laywomen practice the practice is established. Wonder Buddhism has lost Venerable Ananda. Okay. Was what if yes, why Ananda did not ask the Buddha to prolong his life expectancy to 120 or later? You know that sometimes monks who know those sutras and know their Pali very well, we often discuss the Buddha very rarely made any predictions, especially specific predictions, how many years Buddhism would last. And anyway, he said in that the quote you're referring to, that Buddhism may only last for another 500 years. How long ago was that? 2,500 years ago. If that's what the Buddha said, the Buddha made a mistake. And that's very difficult for us to accept. So a lot of times we think that was a little bit strange. The story about the Buddha promising he would not enter Parinibbana until bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, laymen and laywomen were well established on the path. That is well established. And if I were to choose between the two, it's obvious I would choose about the promise to establish bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. That's what the Buddha did. And laymen and laywomen as well. It was kind of like the Buddha's mission in life to do this. Not just for monks, for nuns as well. For laymen and laywomen. He was ahead of his time. Way ahead. Oops. Dear Ajahn, how to find the value of life? How to find the value of life? If ever, you have your life threatened by a disease or something, would you, or like what happened, I read about this in the shootings of Bondi Beach. Some people decided to attack the gunman and wrestled him down. They were shot in the process themselves, but they survived. And that gentleman who survived, he stopped that gunman from shooting so many others. And I didn't read the whole story, but apparently a few people got together and they donated 2.1 million Australian dollars to him as an act of gratitude. Thanks for risking your life to stop others being shot. What is the value of a life? You can't give it value. All you can do is you kind of make sure you don't destroy things. Look, what is the value of this beautiful Penang Buddhist Association? I still haven't explored all of it, it's too big. But it can be destroyed with hardly any cost at all. Bombs, fires. Things are far more difficult to build and really cheap to destroy. Even Bodhinyana Monastery, I spent years building that up. And there's so much sweat, so much sacrifice, it could burn down so easily. That's why never celebrate destruction, but have gratitude for the heroes which have protected things. And that's where they show you the value of life. Hard to build up, very easy to destroy. You told a story, Ajahn Chah asked a question, if you understand, after you emerged from a deep meditation. He answered, there's nothing. Could you explain emptiness, anatta? That was one great explanation. I did that in a recent talk I gave to the monks last Wednesday night before I came here. We built a sauna over in Bodhinyana Monastery over in Bungwai, Wat Banana Chat, many years ago. Because we studied, because I learned Pali and other monks learned Pali, we looked into the Vinaya, the monks' rules and the nuns' rules. How did people live in that time? one of the buildings they had in most monasteries was saunas. Saunas were not invented in Sweden. India got there way before Sweden. And in those saunas, it's supposed to be good for your health. Our teacher was getting sick, Ajahn. So we thought, out of compassion for him, we should try and help by having a sauna. But there was also a selfish reason there as well. If Ajahn had to come to Wat Banana for his sauna, he'd always give a Dhamma talk first. So it meant we get more Dhamma talks for ourselves. That was a selfish reason. And it worked perfectly. Once it was finished, Ajahn would come over to Wat Banana once a week, I forget which day it was, and have his sauna. He'd always give a Dhamma talk first. And just like me, some Dhamma talks you give are good, and some are really hopeless. To be honest. And sometimes Ajahn Chah's talk, oh crikey. And then, this particular evening, Ajahn Chah, before his sauna, gave an amazing Dhamma talk. Sometimes you're really just on the spot. And it was brilliant. I know it's brilliant because there are times when you hear a teaching and it's so inspiring and really just hits you beautifully inside, and you start crying. Tears come down your eyes and cheeks. That's not because you're sad, it's because you're inspired. It's a form of piti, of joy, which is natural. And that's one of those talks. Amazing. And so other monks followed Ajahn Chah to the sauna to assist him. And I thought, this evening, I'll just go to the back of the hall. No one will bother me there. And I can sit meditation. I don't mind how long. And that evening, because I was inspired, my meditation was really deep. And I was meditating for 2 hours. You never decide, I'm going to meditate for 2 hours. You just meditate however long it takes. And after 2 hours, I came out of my meditation. The first thought was, let's go and see if I can still do a service for Ajahn Chah. But as usual, I could do no service for him, but he did a huge service for me. As I was walking towards the sauna, he was walking the opposite direction. We were going to pass on the path. So as usual, because he's my teacher, I stepped off the path, and then he stopped and looked at me. And have I told a story in Penang a couple of days ago? Okay, because when he looked at me, and I've told others this, I don't mind telling you, he read my mind. I don't mind saying this, but it's absolutely true. It's hard to explain because the language is difficult to find, but you felt him inside your mind. He was inside checking it out. Normally I may have been scared, but I just had a beautiful meditation. For once, my mind was neat and tidy. I was happy. Come and have another look. I can meditate, you know. And so once he'd finished checking me out, don't worry about monks checking your mind out. If ever you have that ability to read other people's minds, you read the first couple, you never want to read one again. I call it like Pulp Fiction, bad thoughts and ideas in people's minds. But anyhow, after reading my mind, he stopped and looked at me. And that's as he was looking at me, grabbing my attention. Brahmavamso. That's kind of how he talked on this occasion. He's normally very soft and gentle. He wanted to really grab my attention. Brahmavamso. Why? A simple question. It was a powerful one. What's the answer to the question, why? And then I looked at him and I was honest. It is like the power of precepts again. I said, I don't know. I felt humiliated. But, he asked me the question, I didn't know the answer. And what Ajahn used to do when anybody would ask a question and give a stupid answer, he would start laughing. He never scolded you. He just laughed. It was really funny. These guys with great degrees from big universities were so stupid. And so, he screwed his mind up again and said, Brahmavamso, if anyone asks you that question again, I will tell you the answer. This is Ajahn Chah's answer to the question, why? Are you interested? Or shall we do this tomorrow? So the answer to the question, why, is there's nothing. There is nothing. Mai mi arai in Thai. Can anyone speak Thai here? Mai mi arai. There's nothing. And then he looked at me with real kindness. Brahm, Brahmavamso, do you understand? And I said, yes. He looked at me again and said, no, you don't. And then he walked away. It was really humiliating, but honest. So that's the answer to the question, why? There's nothing. I'm not going to explain it to you. Contemplate it. Understand it for yourself. Brilliant. When a person A has forgiven person B who's offended, done him wrong previously, and the two meet again after some time, anger, discomfort, feeling arises in person A. Does that mean that person A has not forgiven person B? Sometimes forgiveness is not enough. It's hurt a person. So, first of all, there was this couple over in Perth, and she decided to take his suit to the dry cleaners. And as she was preparing to take his suit to the dry cleaners, she noticed in one of the inside pockets there was a receipt. She wondered, where this is from. And the receipt was from a brothel. He'd been visiting prostitutes. And that really upset her. He's been unfaithful to me. And so she confronted him when he came home. And she wanted to throw him out of the house. But they were both regulars coming to Bodhinyana Monastery. So I asked them, they both came to see me for an appointment. And then I asked him, what did you do that for? He said, I was just kind of bored. I still love my wife, I really do. And she was complaining, no you don't, otherwise you wouldn't do something like that to me. I said, look, I really do. I will never ever do that ever again. And she asked me, how can I trust him? So we started a beautiful way of doing forgiveness, which was with parole. We gave him 6 months of probation. And for those 6 months, he had to explain in detail everything he'd done, on his way home from work if he was late. He'd have to give her full access to all his telephone records, iPhones, everything. And she had to have that access for 6 months without any argument. That was the probation period. And if he was found to be clean, then they would come back together again. And that's what they did. He made a mistake, a big mistake. She forgave him. And he was always tested out to make sure that he didn't ever do that again. That's how you reconciled a marriage which was basically just on the rocks. And you know that story in Opening the Door of Your Heart book about the 2 bad bricks in the wall. I know what it feels like because I wanted to destroy that wall. 2 bad bricks spoiled it all. But then somebody else, some brilliant layman who taught me, he said, there's 998 beautiful bricks in that wall. Why can't you just look at the beautiful bricks in the wall? And you never want to destroy that wall. And that was so true. That wall is still there, about 40 years later, in Bodhinyana Monastery. And those 2 are still happily married. That's what forgiveness is. When you see the beautiful part in the other person. You forget just looking at the faults. When I saw the bad bricks, which I'd laid them, it's my fault. I wanted to destroy everything. Now it's just stupidity, delusion. So if you do forgive properly. I noticed that the angina, Ajahn, appears naturally relaxed. I noticed that the Ajahn appears naturally relaxed. We Asian have a cultural background from early childhood to make it hard to cultivate through practice alone. It's in our DNA, our rather karma, that we program ourselves, our default program, perhaps not to relax. Understand? That's one of the reasons why. Are you saying that sort of in Penang, it's in your DNA not to relax? That's why if ever you come to a place like Bodhinyana Monastery or Jhana Grove, you see how many of these we have over in Jhana Grove? And I tell the meditators, please choose your teddy bear. We have other little animals as well. Put it on your lap and then meditate. It's much easier. I was taught this when I went to Hong Kong once. In Hong Kong, one of the meditators said, this young man brought his 2 teddy bears, and I put them on either side of the Buddha statue, like Sariputra Moggallana. And I said, anybody who wishes to borrow them can. Put them on your lap and see if that affects how you meditate. And it always did, positively. And so this young man, at the end of the retreat, when they wanted to make donations, many of the people in Hong Kong offered thousands of dollars for these 2 teddy bears. He refused. He said, no, I love these 2 teddy bears. They help my meditation. They're priceless. That's one way of overcoming anxiety, with kindness. Look, I just got this on my lap. It's lovely. It's non-threatening, it's soft, it's easy to cuddle, and your anxiety gets diminished enormously. I wish we had some more teddy bears here, but we only have this one. But any one of you who wants to borrow it, as long as it comes back here, because apparently it's supposed to be auctioned off or something at the last but borrow it. It's really nice. Oh, develop the beautiful attitude of gratitude it's got here on the back. Beautiful gratitude. As mindfulness deepens, I notice my inner voices are often harsh. Self-attack, self-attack or something, to my surprise, if self-attack could mean, if sometimes from aghast myself, I profoundly understand it's not me. Mindfulness is all heavy to live with such former self. Although I've learned tons about self-acceptance to self-love, but the kind voice can't take even this silent self-hatred, which is by default. I hope I read that out half right. But why is it people are so critical of themselves? People are more critical of themselves than they are critical of others, which is weird. If you're honest with yourself, there's nothing much wrong with you. But one of the reasons is because you never allow yourself to be praised. If I say thank you to someone, if I say that I was so surprised how beautiful this Penang Buddhist Association is, and just how well you've looked after me, and I praise you, do you really accept that? Or do you think, oh, what's he after? He's just saying nice things to me because he wants something. We find it very difficult to receive praise. And this is where, years ago, I was given an award, from Curtin University. It was a John Curtin Medal. Only give it to one person every year. The person who's done good community service, vision, and leadership. And straight away I thought, what does this mean? Community service in Australia is what you do instead of going to jail. An alternative. Vision, I have to wear glasses. I'm in the clinic because I couldn't even read the question properly a minute ago. And leadership, well, I give most of that leadership to other monks while I'm away. So I thought, why are they giving this to me? Because of that, when I went to receive the medal in Curtin University in Perth, it was named after the wartime Prime Minister of Australia, Prime Minister John Curtin, who helped the country through a very difficult time during the Second World War. And when I gave my speech of acceptance, I said, I don't know why you're giving it to me. There's other people in the community who do much more than I would ever do. And anyway, I couldn't do it without the help of all my friends and colleagues. But thank you anyway. That was basically my speech. And the next year I went to somebody else's medal ceremony. And this was a professor of medicine at one of the local hospitals. He was the head hematologist dealing with people who were dying from cancer. And I know enough about people dying from cancer, just how traumatic that is. And he noticed they would go to the hospital, get world-class treatment, but then they would leave the hospital to go home with no aftercare. So he decided he was a top-nose scientist to risk his reputation and commandeer about 5 or 6 rooms in the hospital to introduce things like acupuncture, homeopathy, Reiki, anything which was not usual in a hospital. And he said on his speech he did this because at least if someone was just giving you a hand massage or Reiki where it's just at a distance, they were caring for you for half an hour, all for free. So people who've just gone through some radiation therapy or something, they had these people just basically caring for them. How are you? How did it go? It's nice to see you back here again. I hope everything gets well for you. That kindness was something which was missing when you went to the radiation therapy or chemotherapy. He introduced that, even though it was something unscientific, he thought. And because of that, so many more people survived and did well. He's the kind of, when I heard what he'd done, I got teary-eyed. He was a hero. And then when he received his medal, he said, I don't know why you've given it to me. There are other people in the community who do much more than I do. And I wouldn't have been able to do this without the support and help of all my staff. And straight away I thought, that was a talk I gave last year. But then I stopped and reflected. I knew that he deserved his medal. He was a hero. And then I kind of looked at myself. Maybe, just maybe, the people who decided that I deserved a medal could be right. Maybe I deserve my medal. For the first time, I saw myself accepting praise. I'm just a monk, that's what monks do. No need to praise me and give me a medal, for goodness sake. But then I accepted it. And I realized, why is it I find it so hard to receive praise? It was because my culture in England, my parents, family members, always say, if you receive praise, you get a big head. And that's not true. If you receive praise, you get a big heart. Because I want to do it again. I realize other people really appreciated whatever kindness, whatever advice, whatever extra time I gave to each one of you. It gives me a big heart. And I want to do it again. That's why praise stops you having this terrible feeling about yourself. You accept yourself, respect yourself. I want to do good even more. So if you ever get any praise, please accept it. It makes you a better human being. You agree? So you've done so well. Thank you so much for looking after me. Did you receive that? Okay. You okay with how many more questions here? 2 or 3? 4. Oh. Dear Ajahn Brahm, may I know the good answer the Buddha gave for question number 1, last evening's talk. Why some are rich, why some work very hard, but cannot support themselves. No, you can't know. How can you be kind? Or even I like the one, how you can be beautiful. Because I've looked around and saw, there's some really very beautiful, very strong, very healthy men and women. The answer the Buddha gave is they become beautiful because they keep their precepts. They're good people. Someone who you can trust has a beauty which comes from inside and makes the rest of the body good. So sometimes I've called my meditation retreat center Jhana Grove. I haven't called it Jhana Grove Retreat Center. I've called it Jhana Grove Spa. beauty treatment. And that's pretty accurate. You get happy, your face gets very small, very easy and attractive. Do you like to be around people who are miserable or people who are attractive? Miserable people are unattractive. They're scary, they're frightening. And anyway, how to become rich? You should know that question. And one of the reasons I didn't want to answer it, I think I can answer it today, is by being generous. It's like the world knows that you can use funds, the way you make use of them, to poor people, to monasteries, to people who make the best use of those funds, not for themselves, but for helping the happiness of others. Recently, I've been under a lot of stress and I often experience chest pain. When I try to meditate, the pain becomes worse. What should I do? Thank you. Very easy question to answer. Do nothing. When you are meditating, don't try to do anything at all. Be kind. There's something which I said in one of the interviews, which I'll go into more detail later on in this retreat. It was one of the stories which I really got inspired by. Not a Buddhist story, but it could be. It was from Leo Tolstoy. One of his stories about the emperor's 3 questions. The emperor had enough with religion. They were always arguing. So he decided he was an emperor, he'd start his own religion. So what should it be? He said all he needed the answers to in life was just the answers to 3 questions. Question number 1, when is the most important time? Question number 2, who is the most important person? Question number 3, what's the most important thing to do? When I found the answer to that, wow, changed a lot of my life. So, question number 1, when is the most important time? Of course. So stop worrying about later on. Stop worrying about the past. Your future is being made right now. You learn so much more from the present than you ever learn about the past. Now is the most important time. The answer to the next question was one which really blew me. I never expected this. If you know the right answer, be quiet. Who is the most important person? What? I can't hear you. Ajahn Brahma, no, definitely not. Who is the most important person? No, that's wrong too. That's the most common answer they get, oneself. Totally wrong. The most important person is the one right in front of you, right now. Whoever that happens to be. I knew at that time, I was still a university student. You go up to some professors who were getting famous, had an important question to ask them. And I'd ask the question, and they'd be trying to get rid of me. They weren't paying attention. Have you ever had that? Your husband, your wife, your parents, little kids try to get your attention. Later, son, I'm busy. Imagine how that feels. You know how that feels. It's happened to you many times. Your little kids are not given importance. The most important person in the world is the one right in front of you right now. You are the most important person to me right now. Now you are. So you put your attention on the person right in front of you right now. Number 2, what do you do? And the answer is to care. It's a lovely word in English. To care is between being kind and being mindful, to care. He said that was all he needed to make a wonderful religion. Now is the only time you have. The one in front of you, the most important being in the whole world. And the only thing to do is to care. You could find no fault in that. And to the point in their one rains retreat in Perth, that was the meditation method. The same thing every week. When is the most important time? Right now. What's the most important meditation object? Whatever's right in front of your mindfulness, right in this moment. Not just the breath, not just the body, not metta. Whatever it is, even if you've got a painful body, this is the most important thing. It's right in front of you. Care, be mindful, be kind. It's amazing, beautiful. So if you experience chest pain, now is the most important time. It's happening now. That's right in front of you. Care for it. Don't try and get rid of it. Understand it. Let it be. Be kind. Dear Ajahn, my aunt was an accomplished meditator. She foresaw her own death in her deep meditation. Sadly, what she foresaw did come true, and she died in a car accident. I wonder why her meditation could not change her state, especially when she was still young. Can meditation change our fate? Thank you. Remember, fate is still work in progress. It's not finished yet. You can interfere. You can change. But it's sometimes difficult to. Maybe because she believed it can't be changed, therefore she didn't change it. During my sit, after 30 minutes, suddenly I feel absorption strike me. Then I feel the vibration of my body suddenly stop. Mind is steady, can watch body and breath easily, but the thoughts are still there. Just I won't be taken away. Is this the right path? I don't want to be taken away by the thought. Am I in the right path? It's getting closer, but it's still not the jhanas yet. In the jhanas, you are unable to have any thought at all. The mind stops thinking. You can feel subverbal thoughts. You can't hear sounds, smell, taste, touch. Those have been turned off. It's one of the reasons why when people get inside a jhana, it's hard to get them out. How you get a person out of a jhana? You speak softly to them. Sound is the one thing which can penetrate. Speak so softly and kindly. Please, it's time for lunch. Please come out. That kindness is more powerful than any sharp, loud words. But you can't see, you can't hear, you can't feel. You're totally safe from any injuries. So you can stay there quite happily by yourself for a long time. If you ever do experience these jhanas, please stay as long as you like. It's worth it. They're rare, and if one happens for you, just don't worry about going to bed tonight. You don't need to sleep. You'll be so peaceful, so happy. Okay, got that one. Last question. Oops. When I do meditation, I have goosebumps. They're not goosebumps, they're chicken bumps. Is it a goose, a duck, a chicken? The goosebumps went away when I exhaled. This lasted for a while. What should I do when this happens? Just enjoy it. Nothing wrong with a few goosebumps. So the goosebumps might be just a little bit of kind of interest, excitement. Sometimes I get goosebumps when something really interesting, beautiful is about to happen. So if I get any goosebumps, I go, oh wow, this is great. It's inspiring. So please enjoy the goosebumps. Now is the only time you have. And just the goosebumps are there, they become the most important bumps in the whole world. And care for them. There you go. That's all the questions answered. I'm sure there'll be some more tomorrow. Actually, not tomorrow, because tomorrow it's in a different venue, isn't it? Mahindarama. Is that correct? Okay, Mahindarama. Mahindarama is not that far away. Is it? Okay, so I'll see you all there tomorrow. Is that a good idea? Okay, so, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Very good. Have a pleasant night. Those of you who want to carry on meditating, if you get very deep in meditation tonight, you can levitate over to Mahindarama. That'd be a very cool thing to do. Fly, yes.